Hey everybody, a few weeks ago, Roth Cornet and I sat down for an in-depth spoiler review of Denis Villeneuve's Blade Runner 2049. Shortly thereafter, recent events forced us off the air for a few weeks, and that review was never released. A lot of you have tweeted us and asked us if that would ever see the light of day here on ScreenJunkies News, and we decided to publish it this weekend so that if you have seen the movie, or if you're one of the people that hasn't yet seen it or saw it recently, you can see what our thoughts on the movie are. This was recorded a few weeks ago before the movie was released, so I'm sure there's some speculation about box office and everything else that might seem a little out of date, but for everybody that wanted to see this discussion, we're happy that we can finally show it to you right here on ScreenJunkies News. Enjoy. Blade Runner 2049 is in theaters, which means we can finally talk about it. We've got your spoiler review right here on ScreenJunkies News. Hello, hello.
Hello, you're Dan Murrell.
And you're Roth Cornet.
And we can finally talk about this movie.
Yes, Blade Runner 2049. So if the title wasn't enough and you don't know what you're watching, let this stand as your spoiler alert. From here on out, we're going to be discussing major plot points about Blade Runner 2049. So spoilers begin here. Roth, I said elsewhere, but I haven't in an official capacity had a chance to say it. I really, really like this movie. It's amongst the best movies I've seen this year for me. It is very much, it's not a departure from the first Blade Runner. It is ponderous, which is a word that I apply to the first Blade Runner. It is ponderous, it is deliberate, but it never really lost my interest. And I will say that there are times in rewatching the original Blade Runner, and it may be because I've seen it before, and so a lot of that surprise is gone for me. There are times in rewatching Blade Runner where it felt a little taxing for me, not to detract from the great stuff that's in that movie, but it did feel a little taxing. I didn't feel that watching this movie, at least not the first time. So for people that thought that this would be a huge departure from Ridley Scott's original, this is very much kind of the definition of a sequel.
Oh yeah, I think that this is the spiritual sequel in every way of Blade Runner. And for me, like I love Blade Runner. It's really one of my favorite movies. I watched the three. I know people talk about there's actually 5 versions, but there's the theatrical version. In terms of if you're the audience, the theatrical version with the VO, the director's cut from Ridley Scott, and the final cut.
Yeah,
right?
The director's cut's the one that I watch.
Yeah,
and the one that I usually watch.
I watched all 3 leading up to the release of this film, and because I was such a fan of Denis Villeneuve's, I really believed that he would capture the essence of Blade Runner and update it better than Ridley Scott ever would these days, frankly. Yeah. And he did exactly that. This expands the questions that Blade Runner presents, and it asks new ones. It really puts the mirror up to the world that we're in.
So here's something that I liked that they did. Every time I kind of thought the movie was going to do something, it would do the opposite of that thing. It would defuse what I was worried that it was about to do. And you mentioned very early on in the film, particularly regarding Kay, I was worried going in, and as the movie started, that this movie would be about the kind of a retread of the question about Harrison Ford's Deckard from the first movie. Would be like, is this movie going to be about, is Kay a replicant or not?
Right.
And I like the fact that very early on they establish, yes, he is. And they use that as kind of a jumping off point. So that was one thing that the movie didn't do that I was afraid it's going to do, is like, and that I think a lesser movie would have done, is fall back into that trope of, we have a main character who's very kind of stoic, you have to guess. It's like, no, he is one, and we're going to move on from that.
It's so amazing. The replicant question in this film is something that I danced around talking with the cast about, because wow, I didn't think that they could do that trick where they actually take that question, because what is it to be human, right? And they have a replicant that for a period of his time feels that he was born, meaning more human. Yeah. And then he finds out that he wasn't, and he's actually more replicant. And the what that does for us is that really says it just doesn't matter. He's been the same K the whole time. Right. And so why does the origin of his birth make a difference? And the other thing that it does that I thought turned, same thing. It just, I had an expectation, and turned it on its head, is his relationship with Joy. When that started, when he walked in and I realized, oh, he's got this marriage to kind of like a digital thing, I thought it was going to be really pathetic and sad. But it ended up being one of the more interesting relationships I've seen on film, frankly, in years.
Yeah.
It is loving. It is clearly long-term. There is kindness between them. There's real trust. There's sacrifice.
Yeah.
I mean, my God, this relationship's incredible. And she's a series of ones and zeros.
Well, it expanded on this idea from the first movie of the idea of, are emotions felt by artificial beings artificial? Or I mean, it's kind of what is at the key of Blade Runner is, are artificial people humans? Or because of their artificiality, are they fake? Are they programmed or are they not? Are they things? I mean, that's really what it cuts down to. And yeah, I agree. The romance between those two. I did feel like there was some shades of things that Spike Jonze had kind of brushed on in her, particularly the scene where it's the hologram where he has the girl come up and she goes like that was to me that was similar to what was in her. So I felt like that was a little too it distracted me a little bit just having seen that movie. But I like the idea of it is a very deep exploration of relationships, emotions, feelings. What does it mean to be human? Does it matter whether you're artificial or not? What is artificial? Like, these are the deep questions that the first movie asked, and it would have been very easy to take this movie and turn it and put Blade Runner on it and turn it into a sci-fi action movie. And there is more action in this than I think than the first one, but it's not, I don't think it skirts the depths that the first movie. Something else that I thought that this movie was going to go down the road of and that it didn't, we have the introduction of procreation amongst replicants and the idea of, is Kay the child of Rachel and Deckard, or is he not? And again, as I'm watching the movie, I'm like, in my head, I'm like, oh, they're making this so easy to predict. It's going to be him. He's going to investigate. He's going to find out it's him, and that's going to be the big thing at the end.
Nope.
Again, what I loved, and I almost think they wanted you to think that, because it takes the pressure off of that scene where he goes and visits the girl, and she's looking at the memory, and she says, "This really happened."
She's crying.
And crying. The first time you see that, at least for me, in my head, I'm like, you read that as her confirming that, yes, that this happened to him and he is this child. And then it totally, and credit to the writers and to Denis Villeneuve and to the acting and everything in this movie, you go back a second time and you realize that she's looking at her own memories, and when she says, yes, that really happened, she's reliving that moment in her life. Again, this is from somebody that was looking for trickery, and when I thought that they would go surface, they ended up going another level deeper, which is another thing that I appreciated about this movie. It wasn't just a retread.
Not at all. I agree with you. This is it's one of those movies, and I hesitate to talk this way about movies sometimes, but it's so thematically rich. I know I'm going to watch it again and again and get more out of it. With that, what I loved about that character is that, so they had to seclude her. She's so lonely. Yeah. You know, like, she is this unicorn, right? From the Ridley essentially from the Ridley. She is this completely unique entity that is, there is no one else and nothing else like her, right? As a result, I believe we were saying, was she really sick, or did they just want to isolate her?
Was she hiding?
Was she hiding in plain sight? Yeah. Or was she really, did she have kind of a genetic disorder because she is a completely new creation? Maybe either way, the point is that it taps into the loneliness and the isolation and the necessity of fantasy for a being that truly would be that unique, is that there's no one that she can connect with as a result. And that's what we all really want. That's all we really want.
Well, and the idea that her very nature is what makes her so good. You know, when they go to her, she's like, I make the best memories in the world. Like, I don't know why, but people come to me because they say that nobody can do implanted memories like I can. And you realize that the reason that she can is because she is, well, that's the next question. She is either all replicant or a hybrid. Yeah. And that kind of segues into my next thing, which was Harrison Ford comes in way later in the movie than I expected. But the scene with him and Jared Leto, who I actually did not mind in this movie, that just goes to show you how great the movie is. I didn't mind Jared Leto. Not that I always don't like him, but it's sometimes he makes it difficult. I thought he was good in this movie. The scene with him and Harrison Ford again, as a viewer, I'm expecting it to be, this is going to be the exposition dump where they make the big reveal of the answer to the question that everyone's, and he reveals Tyrell and your model number X. And instead, it gave me what I think, just watching it, and I'm anxious to see it again, but some of the best acting work I've seen Harrison Ford do in years, when he's talking to him about Rachel and he says, you fell in love with her instantly, and he's like, that's what you're programmed to do, wasn't it? Or was it love?
Yeah, and he doesn't answer.
And he doesn't answer the question, and just Harrison Ford, just the emotion, and when he says, I know what's real.
Yeah.
That, to me, was the best way you could answer that question, which is, again, to imply, to hint, but it's not about, at the end of the day, it's not about, is Deckard a replicant or not? It's about, can he live a human life? And that's what I think that moment spoke, is when he said, I know what's real.
Yeah.
That's him. I think that's the movie, and I think it's him saying it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. And
matter.
This was the big conversation I had with the cast, was that without being sort of shaming or preachy about it, this movie says, you have been asking the wrong question for all of these years, because it doesn't matter whether Deckard is a replicant or not, and it didn't matter if Rachel was or not. What matters is their behavior, their choices, the humanity of those choices. I mean, you look at somebody who, I gotta say, Dave Bautista is in that movie for about 5 minutes, and you feel that performance. He's great.
Yeah, he's good.
He's phenomenally good. Denis Villeneuve notoriously pulls tremendous performances out of his actors, and every single performance here is extraordinary. I like Jared Leto as an actor. I actually think he's a really good actor.
He is. His antics, I think, and I think for a lot of people, he's very outward about his process. And for me, just personally as a fan, sometimes I'm like, it's a little much, especially when it's like, oh yeah, I've been sending condoms and dead rats, and it's like, you're playing at the Joker. Come on, if Nicholson can do it, you can do it. Without, Nicholson wasn't sending Kim Basinger dead pigs.
Yeah.
So I think it's his antics, not his performance, because he is actually a very strong actor.
He is a strong actor, but I think one of the great things is that he acts with very little compassion and humanity. Robin Wright acts with what she thinks is the greater good, but is questionable in terms of her ultimate compassion and humanity. And then Sapper acts with absolute compassion and humanity. And so to me, those are the other thing about making her Anna a memory maker, which I thought was so brilliantly done, was that our memories, human beings, very, very questionable. Memory and fantasy intermingle all the time for us. The way we remember our lives, the way we perceive our lives is never an exact. We could have two very different memories of the same event, and both of us kind of be wrong. It's very much colored by your perception and your experience and what you want to believe. So what I thought was brilliant about that is like, what matters is what we believe about ourselves. He says that same line. Ryan Gosling K does.
Yeah.
I know what's real, but he says it with anguish because he doesn't.
Yeah.
And Harrison Ford says, I know what's real because he doesn't love the fake Rachel.
Right. He loved the person that he knew.
The one that he knew.
Yeah.
And he knew what color her eyes were, and he knew her soul.
That was that line again, just when they bring her out, and the best use of that technology that I've seen.
Oh my God, yeah.
And when Sean he just
Young
turns away from her and just says her eyes were green, and just the brutality of them just shooting her in the head. But again, that thing of just like, you think that because I fell in love for artificiality once, that I will just fall in love for any artificial thing. It's like, I wasn't in love with the replicant that she was. It was her. It wasn't this, this fantasy that you're trotting out, literally trotting out.
Yeah.
So thematically and just stylistically, I thought this was a genuine follow-up, and not so many, even with Force Awakens. Like, Force Awakens was fun, but it was a riff on Star Wars.
Sure.
It was a riff on what people like about Star Wars. It was a riff on the tropes and the characters, and it was like, these worked in previous films, and it did work for me. It didn't work for a lot of people, but I don't think that a lot of people could look at this movie and say like, well, this was just a riff on the original. Like, I think this took the ideas of the original and literally did what a sequel's supposed to do, advance it down the timeline 30 years. We see the progress of society, of humanity, of technology, and it gave us a new story that still harkened back to the past.
Look, I love Blade Runner, and I really think that this stands on the shoulders of Blade Runner, but it deepens the questions and it deepens the experience of Blade Runner, and it plays with those ideas so brilliantly. And this is a movie you come out questioning, like, hey, the fact of the matter is our perceptions are far from infallible. Like our screen of the world is far from infallible. So what does it really matter? What I believe is what matters. What I believe about myself and what my life is actually what matters. And this is a beautiful movie.
This is a gorgeous movie. Credit to Denis Villeneuve, who made, I think a lot of people thought he might have to choose between making a Blade Runner movie or a Denis Villeneuve movie. He made both.
Yeah. And it does stand on its own, though, too. That's the other crazy thing. I really think you should see Blade Runner.
It helps.
It helps, but you actually don't have to.
You don't have to, but I think particularly the parts about Rachel work way better if you know what happened in the first movie.
You have that context.
But
he comes in so late, though, man. Were you upset to see him so late?
I was surprised that he came in so late. However, once he came in, that world they constructed, the kind of rundown Las Vegas hologram casino, that just shows you what a great director with a great eye. And Roger Deakins. Yeah. By the way, if Roger Deakins... He's been robbed of an Oscar 13 times by now. 13 times. First of all, Roger Deakins deserves this award just on the merits of this film. However, if Roger Deakins, and if you don't know who Roger Deakins is, he's a cinematographer. He's done so many of the Coen brothers movies, a lot of Denis Villeneuve's movies. If he doesn't win the Oscar for this movie,
it's a travesty.
What else can he do?
Also, I just want to praise not only Roger Deakins, this work is incredible. This is a stunningly beautiful movie that needs to be seen in the theater. Also, I have to praise the production designer. Those sets, the Vegas, like the huge statues, built. Yeah. They built that. That's crazy. That doesn't happen. That's the sound design in this film and the score. What I loved about the score was that it sort of like it harkened back to the Blade Runner score, but it brought in something new. There are certain points that sounds like Tibetan chanting. Did you know?
It's a very there's a lot of different feels to the music and how it mixes technology and humanity and spirituality and technology. It plays with those in the score as it does in the movie. I will say this, it's asking a lot of, I love this movie and I'm fine with this, but it does ask a lot of its audience. It does.
Long. It's very slow paced. Harrison Ford, who maybe a lot of people came there to see, does come in quite late. I didn't mind.
It's front loaded. It's very top heavy as far as this movie takes a very long time to get to the part that I think some in the audience will be going for, which is the more direct follow up to Blade Runner.
And it doesn't answer that question.
And it doesn't answer that question definitively. So I think some people might be a little disappointed in that. I don't know how this is going to play, if I'm being honest, with an overall audience, because there are all kinds of moviegoers, and there are some that are. It's kind of the Star Wars versus Star Trek audience, and Blade Runner goes way more toward the Star Trek side, because I think a lot of people might walk into this expecting an action sci-fi movie. This isn't that. And it kind of got into that a little bit at the end with the water rescue. And that, for me, not that it was bad, but that was the least interesting part of the movie for me, only because it was fighting and you're ticking clock, and it seemed a little more conventional, like what the entire movie could have been. Yeah. I didn't dislike it, but it was the part of the movie that I kind of go back to and I'm like, oh yeah, and that happened too. Yeah. Because you have to wrap it up.
I want to quickly praise not only the actresses, but the film. I have a confession to make. So when I looked at the trailers and I saw Ana de Armas, who plays Joy, and Sylvia Hoeks, who plays Love, which...
By the great, one of the great bad guy names and bad guys. Yeah, in a while.
In a while, she's great.
In a long time.
I looked at that and I thought, oh yeah, they're sort of like the beautiful replicants who you know are there. No. These are unbelievably nuanced performances. She's heartbreaking, Love, because you can tell how much she desires her father's affection
and approval.
Approval. I mean, it's...
And what's more human?
But what's more human than that? And she she also really hates what she's doing a lot of the time. You know, sometimes like with Robin Wright, she delights in it. That's what's great. You can see she's so sad when she's eliminating that firstborn replicant.
Yeah.
Right. But Robin Wright, she's so angry that she would try and stop this progress.
Yeah.
That is an unbelievably nuanced performance. I have to praise everyone involved for giving so much more than I thought we would get out of both of those performances.
There's really not a bad note amongst anyone in the cast. And yeah, I have to admit, I was expecting a follow-up to Blade Runner that was maybe a little more mainstream. And Denis Villeneuve, really, I thought this might be the time when a studio hires a great director like Denis Villeneuve to bring his sensibility to a more generic story.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that. And it really, I was pleasantly surprised by that. Because I think if it would have been a generic sci-fi action, more of an action adventure directed by Denis Villeneuve, I think I would have liked it. But this movie had so much more than that to offer. And I was genuinely surprised by that. So yeah, Blade Runner 2049, it's up there for me as far as what I've seen so far. There's a long way to go, but it's up there for me, yes, as far as what I've seen this year.
Okay, so this is the point in the program where I say I love this movie. I'm going to see it again. There's so much that I think is beautiful and special about this film. There are 3 plot points that bothered me.
Okay, it's not about criticism. Yes, I want to hear it.
And I wish I could have asked about them. So here's plot point number 1.
Okay.
Kay has Anna's memories. Okay.
Right. Yes.
But no one could have known that he would be the one to go there and discover Rachel's remains, therefore opening up the rabbit trail to find Anna.
Right.
Why does Kay, it's a massive coincidence to believe he just happens to have these memories. And you could just say, oh, Anna's giving random people those memories, real mixed with fake, right?
Right.
Except that when he meets the leader of the Replicant Rebellion, she says, that's just, I forget the exact phrasing, but she essentially says, that's just another piece of the puzzle. What piece of the puzzle? Because they had tried to trick it that there was a boy, not a girl. So clearly there was a plan to make people believe that it was a boy that was born, not a girl, and that the girl had died to hide Anna further. So they obviously gave Kay the memories for a reason, to make him believe that he was that child. But how could they have known that he would be the one on the trail? So if someone has an answer, I'm only too happy to be
I don't know. That didn't bother me in the moment. I guess I just assumed that replicants are kind of assigned memories, and since they're made by the corporation, there might be somebody on the inside that could have done it. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. That didn't. This is the first time I've actually thought about it. So that's a good question.
And the only other piece that I thought that I was okay with that is this. Here's how I justified it. He didn't have that memory. And then later, once he was the one on the trail, when he went in to like the base camp or whatever, to get to baseline, somehow in that sequence of events, they gave him the memories and they gave him the memories of telling that story multiple times. But then his wife also knew the story. So I would love somebody to clean that up for me.
I'm planning to watch it again, so I'll look out for it. I'll keep an eye on that. I'm going to keep an eye on that for the next time.
Here's the second one.
Yep.
Anna is the top memory maker. It's got to be highly lucrative, right? And very expensive.
Sure.
Well,
yeah.
Or
she's a specialist.
She's a specialist. She's also in this enclosed facility.
Yeah.
Where there are no guards, where there is no one to greet them, where there is, how is she getting her food? That's a whole other thing. There's no one to stop either Harrison Ford or Kay from coming in, except that they find Kay there the first time. And then the second time when he's actually being hunted because he's not baseline and the captain is dead, when Robin Wright is dead, they would definitely be looking for him at that point. He goes back there with Harrison Ford and it's supposed to be completely safe. Here's the third one. And forgive me because I don't mean to be nitpicky.
Deckard they're not looking for.
Deckard.
Because he died.
Okay.
Because he said, I'm going to give you that death.
That's the third one. Why? Why are we led to believe, first of all, here's the following reasons that doesn't make sense. One is that Why did they have to take him off world to torture him when they were clearly in a hidden facility? Clearly, Jared Leto and Love are sort of above the law because she just killed in the police station Robin Wright and walked out and was fine. No one's hunting her. Unless they are, and that's why they have to go off world. 3 is that who knows that they took Deckard in order for them to know that he had drowned? Nobody even knows that he was taken, much less that he was drowned. And 4, who are they going to believe? Kay, who's on the run?
I thought he meant that the company wouldn't be looking for Deckard anymore because...
But what about the police? The police would be looking for Kay, and Kay would lead them to Deckard at the facility with Anna, who's the most special creature on Earth.
Yeah, well, I guess as far as the facility, I guess I always just assumed there was somebody sitting at a desk right inside that door that you just didn't see. That was like,
hey,
hi, sign in, and then you just go and see.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean,
I will reserve judgment until I see what the lobby of the secret laboratory looks like.
So I mean, I know I'm sounding more emphatic about that because you've heard me praise this film again and again and again.
Yeah.
Those things I let go, and I said maybe there's actually when I watch it again, I'll find an explanation that makes sense, or maybe I won't and I don't care.
Yeah.
Because so much else about this film works for me.
Yeah, I mean, I get maybe a testament to the fact that how much I enjoyed this. Those are things that never really. Crossed my mind. I mean, there are certain... I juggle with this too, particularly when I'm competing between my movie lover brain and my honest trailer brain, which is a whole different gear that hopefully if I'm watching a movie, if it's doing its job right, I don't kick into that gear when I'm watching a movie, the honest trailer side. If the honest trailer kicks in while the movie is going on, something is terribly wrong. There are certain indulgences that you have to grant movies in order for them to be movies.
In order for the plot to progress.
In order for the plot to progress. Sometimes they over rely on that, and I think that's where it's troublesome. So it may just be that those are certain things that the movie did, cheats that the movie had that didn't bother me in the moment that are perfectly valid questions. But I think those are all good things that I'm going to pay attention to when I see the movie again.
But at the end of the day, if you can achieve all of the other things that we just talked about, this is stunningly beautiful. This is deep. This is thoughtful in a way that is not... in any way, in my opinion, pretentious.
Yeah.
That is relatable, that is profoundly human, that is a deeply emotional experience. I mean, I was really caught up emotionally in this film as well. That you can expand this already singular film in a way that works and adds depth
to it,
and adds layers to it. I don't care. I honestly didn't care about the plot stuff. Yeah. I did notice it, but I didn't care.
Great movie. One that I'm sure will be discussed and debated and analyzed and deconstructed and reconstructed many, many times in the next weeks and months and years. So that is our spoiler thoughts on Blade Runner 2049. I hope you enjoyed going deep down the
rabbit hole
down the rabbit hole with us. These are the kind of movies that I love, though, that even if it's a movie like Mother, maybe it's not for everybody, but it challenges you and it invites discussion and analysis, and I think that's what a lot of us are here for. So
those are the movies I love too.
Yeah, those are the fun ones.
And to your point, even when it makes me angry or it inspires like this one didn't make me angry, this one made me feel like I was in love.
Yeah.
But it inspires a conversation, man, that's what movies are for. Yeah.
So that is our spoiler review of Blade Runner 2049. If you skipped ahead, the spoilers are done. We're going to wrap it up. So much more movies left in this year. November's going to be a big year, but it's fun to take a movie like this that's big and also allows us to sit for about half an hour and break it down. So until next time, I'm Dan Murrell.
I'm Roth Cornet.
Thanks for watching.
Click here for more awesome Screen Junkies news and click the logo to subscribe.